Wake up babe, it's 2012 and we're playing Minecraft between rage-inducing matches of League of Legends. You get it. It was a big year for the millennials, but the biggest thing that happened in 2012 was Steam Greenlight. If you're not at least as old as Minecraft, you might not remember this, but there was a time when we voted on games to be put onto Steam. Some of the first games to emerge from this new system were Project Zomboid, Kenshi, Black Mesa, No More Room in Hell. Maybe you've heard of some of these games. Maybe you haven't because you're a troglodyte that lives in the tadpole water under a rock. Regardless, these games are voted for by your average Joe, and that's pretty cool. Steam was not a small platform. It had sold approximately 300 million units between all of its games by the end of 2012, and I'm rounding down by the way. So getting your game in front of all those gamers was a pretty big deal, but what was the process like? Did you need a huge publisher or a kabillion-jillion dollars? When a developer wanted to put their game into the Steam Greenlight program, they'd fill out a submission form and pay a $100 fee to Valve. That's the company that owns Steam. The submission form included a text description of the game, an image for the storefront, a video showing gameplay, 4 screenshots of the game, and technical information Steam would use to categorize your game. Then they'd provide you with your very own page where users could vote on your game and leave comments. You'd see the game either stagnate into oblivion or climb the ranks. Supposedly, they approved games for release once they hit a certain percentage of positive votes, but how did a game reach a pristine and softer position of number 17 on the charts? And it sat there for 3 months, longing for the approval of Valve. But that's just how it goes sometimes. Well, hopefully you read the title of this video, so you should know that this is about curation and how it affects video games. This curation doesn't exist like it used to, and even if it was just a beauty pageant that served the most well-funded products, it was still something. When I was growing up, game magazines were still popular, and I got the sweet hand-me-downs from my stepdad. One of these was called Game Informer. It's actually still around to this day, which is pretty cool. I used to flip through the pages of this thing like a fiend. It's pretty freaking cool. Just look at that, dude. Shout out to Engage Jackson for the video that's playing behind me right now. Pretty neato. Video game magazines are mostly gone. Even websites like Rock Paper Shotgun and Kotaku don't really have a strong impact on game sales anymore. Even Tom Francis, creator of Tactical Breach Wizards, Heat Signature, and Gunpoint, said that curation from gaming websites just doesn't matter. And mind you, this guy's a former writer for PC Gamer.
I mean, does that mean that getting articles written about your game isn't very important anymore?
I mean, I think it's less important. Definitely when I started in 2013, to promote that game, that was the peak of my press contacts and the peak of press importance in terms of like getting a preview or a review was kind of everything. And streamers existed, but they weren't sort of seen as like the primary way of getting the word out. Whereas these days, I feel like streamers are sort of more important. I still think press is important, and I care about it anyway, even if it wasn't, crucial to success. I really want to know what critics thought of my game, and I want that score to be good. Like it matters to me, partly because I was a reviewer, and I know that it's more meaningful than some people would assume.
So if written articles about video games don't offer curation anymore, then what does? Well, we had Steam Greenlight for a few years, and it really opened up the greater gaming audience to indie developers, but Steam Greenlight had its own problems, and the issues that plagued it the most were, number 1, if they rejected or removed a game on Steam Greenlight for being too steamy or provocative in some other way, well, that reflects on them as a company, and no company wants to be accused of censorship. Number 2, games that shouldn't have won the beauty pageant did anyways, and survival of the fittest came to be what the system really boiled down to. I admit I was amongst the uglies, the dejected, the stinky smellies. The first game I made was so bad that I'm ashamed to share on this channel, so instead I'll just show you the trailer and tell you how it got votes. This is real, by the way. Yeah, so you might not believe it, but this is the game's release trailer, and it was significantly improved compared to the original. It's really important to understand how bad this game's presentation was. So how did it get approved for release on Steam? Well, I had a friend who was friends with someone who ran a website where people were promised Steam keys for games that were in exchange given a vote by that user. This meant that you could net 4,000 votes and be in the pristine softer position of number 17 without actually making a good video game. And this might shock you, but a lot of people abuse this system. Eventually my game came out and it sold around $20,000, which is crazy, but the lesson here is that Curation didn't filter out all the stinkers like it was meant to. Eventually, as more and more games were uploaded to Steam Greenlight, something both devastating yet wonderful happened. Valve saw the writing on the wall, and on June 6, 2017, put an end to Steam Greenlight. But what would replace it? Well, 1 year prior, on June 13th, 2016, they started a new program called Steam Direct. So basically, they just left the floodgates wide open. For a while, there was just a lot of slop and games coming in, and while it was oversaturated, there were still some gems being discovered by people willing to dig through the excessive number of titles released each day. Well, that was the case until at last the floodgates gave way to the most popular genre of video games. On July 16th, 2024, 7 years after the introduction of Steam Direct, Valve decided it was time to accept NSFW games. Now, with nothing protecting the Steam ecosystem, all developers and games have an equal chance of success. It's not a beauty pageant with cheat codes anymore. Instead, it's about marketing and bringing an audience to the game yourself, which brings me to my next point about curation. Without curation, you have to find and grow an audience by yourself. That could be posting on social media, streaming on Twitch, making YouTube videos. Maybe it's all of those things. More on that later. But in the past, you could rely on the platform you were releasing on for some amount of sales and attention to be put onto your game. But when there are more than 100 games being released each day, there's just no way to give each of those titles their own audience. There are, of course, bundling services like Humble Bundle, but it's intended and treated as a post-release benefit for games rather than a curation service for up-and-coming titles. Matter of fact, Humble Bundle stopped doing game publishing a few years ago because even publishers are having a rough time staying afloat in the current ecosystem. Also, I've had one of my own games in a Humble Bundle, and my share of sales was abysmal. Not their fault. Who wants 5 bad indie games for $6? Maybe you. I don't know. Should have bought it. Big companies will continue to thrive, and first-time developers may find that making games isn't a viable source of income anymore. It never was a safe career choice, but in the past you could rely on skills and experience to create video games that people would have to play. The saying was, good games sell themselves, but that isn't the case anymore. There's hundreds of good games released every month, so how do you stand out without curation? I don't know, I can't answer that question. Maybe you make a self-help game dev podcast, or you try to emulate Billy Basso's brand of autism. It's not a dig at Amwell, by the way. I love that game, and I really mean, like, I wish I could be as good at making games as my boy Billy. But not all of us are born with the innate skills and influences that lead to success, and this is even more true if marketing is one of the required skills. Okay, but it's not all doom and gloom, and actually it's more like boobs and coom. If you care not for the yard and see this as a path to cash, you could just make NSFW games. Actually, the success rate of AI-generated visual novels on Steam is jaw-dropping, and while I'm upset that they're flooding the market and making my own games hard to showcase, I acknowledge our carnal urges and see why they're selling so well. I mean, $5 and you can have an interactive visual novel with gooner content. The price is right. Maybe you're like me and you don't want to become a goon game churning factory. Well, there are other methods. Number 1, you could win a game jam. It would need to be a prolific game jam like Ludum Dare, but it is possible. Many games that win or get near winning game jams become fully fledged games with an audience created directly from game jam enjoyers. Additionally, YouTubers and streamers often cover popular game jam entries, so you get some pretty good coverage compared to like just releasing it on your own, and also game jams are free. Number 2. You don't want to do number 2. Number 2 is the most grueling, unfair, confidence yoinking option there is. This is a method that your absent father would describe as pulling yourself up by your own bootstraps. This method is self-marketing. I'm talking streaming on Twitch multiple days a week, making YouTube content that's relevant to your video game, and finally connecting with people in a natural way that doesn't demand their attention but might encourage it. This is the hardest path, but it's also the safest path. Often with the self-marketing method, people make the mistake of creating content just like dumping it everywhere. This doesn't work. You need real human connection with tons of people to create a baseline audience so that the algorithm starts to care about your content. Even then, people aren't going to consistently support every bit of content you create. If this was easy, then everyone would be having a massive following and I wouldn't even be making this video. What's the future look like then? How is this caca slap super soaker spray of games ever going to slow down? It's not. It's going to keep getting worse from here, and to be honest, I don't know what the future holds, but marketing yourself without curation gets harder every single day, and that's likely to continue as more people get into game dev. But listen, if you put in the time and have enough determination, you can succeed even after the death of curation in games.